Before you do anything else, I want you to stop for just a moment and listen, because this message might be exactly what you need today. I don't know your name. I don't know where you're listening from. I don't know what you've been through. But I know this. There are people listening right now who are carrying battles that nobody else can see. You smile when people ask how you're doing. You say, I'm fine. You keep moving. You keep working. You keep showing up. But deep down, you're exhausted. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You've been strong for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like not to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Maybe you're worried about money. Maybe you're struggling in a relationship. Maybe you're grieving someone you loved. Maybe you're fighting a battle inside your own mind. Or maybe you're simply tired of waiting for answers, waiting for healing, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for God to move. And if we're being honest, there may have been moments when you've asked yourself a difficult question. God, are you even listening? You pray, you hope, you trust, and yet the situation doesn't seem to change. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. And sometimes it feels like heaven is silent. But can I tell you something that changed my life? Just because God is silent does not mean He is absent. Think about a teacher during an exam. The teacher is usually silent. Not because they left the room, not because they don't care, but because the test is taking place. The same can be true in life. There are seasons when God seems quiet. Seasons when you don't understand what's happening. Seasons when the road ahead feels uncertain. Yet even in those moments, He is still working. You may not see it. You may not feel it. But that doesn't mean it isn't happening. Imagine a seed planted deep beneath the ground. Day after day, nothing appears to happen. The soil looks exactly the same. If you judge the process by what you could see, you would assume the seed was dead. But underneath the surface, roots are growing. Life is forming. Strength is developing. The growth is invisible before it becomes visible, and maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe your roots are growing. Maybe God is building strength in you that you don't yet understand. Maybe the delay is not a denial. Maybe the waiting has a purpose. Because sometimes the greatest blessings require the deepest roots. The truth is, some of the strongest people you admire today were once sitting exactly where you are. Confused, discouraged, afraid, ready to quit. The difference is that they kept going. One more day, one more prayer, one more step, even when they couldn't see the outcome. Faith isn't believing when everything makes sense. Faith is taking the next step when nothing makes sense. Faith is trusting that God sees what you cannot. Faith is believing that your story isn't over yet. And if you're listening to this right now, I want you to hear this clearly. Your story is not over. The setback is not the end. The disappointment is not the end. The failure is not the end. The heartbreak is not the end. This chapter may be painful, but it is still only a chapter. There are pages you haven't read yet, victories you haven't experienced yet, people you haven't met yet, prayers that haven't been answered yet, and blessings that haven't arrived yet. Don't make a permanent decision based on a temporary season. The storm you're facing today will not last forever. Rain eventually stops. Night eventually ends. Winter eventually gives way to spring. And difficult seasons eventually pass. One day you'll look back and realize that the thing you thought would destroy you actually made you stronger. The struggle that almost broke you taught you how resilient you truly are. The waiting season taught you patience. The pain taught you compassion. The uncertainty taught you faith. So if you're tired, keep going. If you're discouraged, keep going. If you're hurting, keep going. Not because it's easy, Not because you have all the answers, but because there is still purpose ahead of you. There is still hope ahead of you. There is still life ahead of you. And perhaps at this very moment, while you are wondering if anything is changing, God is already putting the pieces together behind the scenes. One day, everything will make sense. Until then, keep believing, keep trusting, keep walking forward. The best chapters of your story may still be waiting to be written. And maybe right now you're thinking, but you don't understand my situation. You don't know how many times I've tried. You don't know how many nights I've cried myself to sleep. And you're right, I don't. But God does. He knows every tear you've shed, every prayer you've whispered, every disappointment you've carried, every fear you've hidden from the people around you. There is nothing about your life that has escaped His attention. Not one moment, not one struggle, not one silent cry. Sometimes we think God only notices the big moments, the miracles, the victories, the breakthroughs. But God also sees the ordinary days. The days when getting out of bed feels like a victory. The days when you're barely holding yourself together. The days when you're fighting battles that nobody else knows about. And those days matter too. You may feel invisible to the world, but you are not invisible to God. Think about some of the greatest stories in history. Noah waited decades before the rain came. Joseph spent years in slavery and prison before he became a ruler. David was anointed king long before he ever sat on a throne. The waiting season was not wasted. It was preparation. And maybe your preparation is happening right now. Maybe God is developing strength that success alone could never teach. Maybe He's teaching you trust when circumstances make no sense. Maybe He's shaping your character for a purpose bigger than you can currently imagine. One day, people may look at your life and see the blessing, but they won't see the nights you spend wondering if you could continue. They won't see the prayers, the tears, the doubts, the moments when you almost gave up. Yet those moments are where faith is forged, not when everything is easy, but when everything is difficult and you choose to trust anyway. That's real faith. Not perfect faith, not fearless faith, just faith that keeps moving forward, even when the road is dark, even when the answers don't come, even when the future feels uncertain. And maybe that's all God is asking from you today. Not perfection, not greatness. Just one more step, one more prayer, one more day. Because sometimes miracles don't arrive all at once. Sometimes they arrive one small step at a time. A door opens, a conversation happens, an opportunity appears. A burden feels a little lighter. And before you know it, the thing you prayed for begins to unfold. So if you're listening to this today, don't lose hope. The chapter you're in is not the entire story. There is still more ahead. More healing, more growth, more joy, more purpose, more life. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you'll look back on this season and say, now I understand. Now I see why I had to go through it. Now I see what God was doing all along. Until that day comes, keep your faith, protect your hope, guard your heart. And remember this, the same God who brought you this far is not going to leave you now. Your breakthrough may be closer than it appears. Your answer may be nearer than you think. And your story is far from over. Before you do anything else, I want you to stop for a moment and really listen. What if the thing you're worrying about right now never even happens? How much of your life has been spent fighting battles that only existed in your mind? How many nights have you lost sleep over outcomes that never came true? The truth is, the human mind has a way of creating storms long before the rain ever falls. We imagine the worst. We replay fear. We prepare ourselves for pain that hasn't arrived and might never arrive. And while we're busy living in tomorrow's fears, we slowly lose the peace of today. Jesus once said, not to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will worry about itself. Yet so many of us live as if worry is something we have to carry every single day. We worry about the future, about money, about health, about relationships, about things we cannot control. But worry has never solved a single problem. It doesn't change the past, and it doesn't control the future. All it does is steal the only moment we actually have, the present. Maybe that's what you need to hear today. You don't have to carry tomorrow's weight right now. Today already has enough in it. One day at a time, one step at a time. That's how every mountain is climbed, not in one leap, but in small steps forward, even when it feels slow. And if you feel like you're behind in life, pause and look back for a moment. Think about everything you've already survived, the heartbreaks you didn't think you would recover from, the nights you thought you wouldn't make it through, the failures that once felt like the end of everything, yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still moving forward. That strength didn't come from nowhere. It was built in the moments you thought were breaking you. Sometimes we forget how strong we actually are because we're too focused on where we think we should be instead of how far we've already come. Just like a tree doesn't become strong overnight, neither do we. Growth happens slowly, quietly, often in ways we don't notice. Roots go deeper in the dark. Strength is built in seasons when nothing seems to be happening. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. Not stuck, not forgotten, but being strengthened in ways you cannot yet see. Because the truth is, not every season is about visible progress. Some seasons are about preparation. Some seasons are about becoming strong enough to carry what's coming next. Even the people we admire most didn't become who they are without struggle. Their stories are not just stories of success, but stories of waiting, failure, doubt, and pain. And maybe that's what makes those stories powerful. Not perfection, but perseverance. Because people don't connect with perfect lives. They connect with real ones. Lives that broke and healed, lives that doubted and kept going, lives that fell and still found a way to rise again. And maybe your story is becoming one of those stories too. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Even if you don't understand what's happening, even if everything feels uncertain. God wastes nothing. Not your pain, not your waiting, not your tears, not your mistakes. Somehow, in ways we don't always see in the moment, everything can be used. The joy and the suffering, the wins and the losses, the moments of clarity and the moments of confusion, they all become part of something bigger than what we can currently understand. So if you're tired, keep going. If you're discouraged, keep going. If you feel like nothing is changing, keep going. Not because everything is easy, but because your life still has purpose in it. There are still chapters ahead that you haven't read yet. There are still people you haven't met, doors that haven't opened, prayers that haven't been answered, and blessings that haven't arrived. Don't let a painful season convince you that your story is over. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come right after the hardest moments. And when doubt whispers that you're not enough, remember everything you've already survived. When fear tells you to give up, remember how far you've already come. When disappointment tries to convince you that nothing will change, remember that even the darkest nights eventually turn into morning. Keep moving forward even if it's slow. Keep trusting even if you don't understand. Keep hoping even if it feels fragile. Because one day, you'll look back at this season and realize it wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of something stronger, deeper, and more meaningful than you ever expected.